So what we're going to do for Dan here is have a look through his LinkedIn profile, what kind of things we can improve, how can we make him stand out, and what kind of things could he do to achieve certain goals on LinkedIn. So people use LinkedIn for a huge number of different reasons. A lot of the time people will use it just for networking. So what their goals with LinkedIn would be to share information more effectively. It could be to show their personalities. It could be to market themselves if they have a business, for example. Others use it as a tool for employment. So if you're a candidate, you might want to make your profile look as attractive to potential employers as possible, where you need to show experience, you need to show skills, responsibilities, achievements, things like that. Whatever the purpose is, you can design your LinkedIn profile to highlight that in the best possible way. And then once you have your profile up to scratch, you can then start to market yourself more effectively and network. And when people land on your page, they're going to have a better response to whatever you're saying or doing or interacting. So firstly, let's just have a look at what we can do here to improve the page. Now, I normally look at these pages from a recruitment perspective. Obviously, I'm somebody who works in recruitment, so I have certain ways of viewing a page that other people might not if they were just networking. But if your goal is to make yourself look attractive to employers, the same kind of applies to recruiters. So the way that I view a page is probably the way that a potential employer would view your page. Now, the first thing I'll say is, when you're looking at a LinkedIn profile, and when you're looking at most things realistically, you will go by first impression. And the first impression is just what you can see at a glance, okay? So there's a few things that you get. First are the pictures at the top. You'll glance at those. Next is the job title here. Then you normally have here an About Us section, which Dan hasn't actually got. If I show you on mine, here is an About Us section. Now this, we'll go through all of this in more detail, but this, you get 2 lines as a snapshot, and then you can expand that to see more. So the first 2 lines are the really important ones that you would look while glancing. Next are job titles and information here, and then finally education. Now, all of these things are important, every single one. You can do a lot to each individual aspect to make them look as strong as possible, and really make sure that that first impression is like a wow, rather than just something that they scroll past. Then when you get deeper into it, you go past that first impression and you get to give information that you would only give if somebody were like wowed with their first impression and wants to learn more about you. So for example, like I said about that expanding this bit, if they're not wowed by my profile and they don't really care about expanding this because these first 2 lines aren't engaging, then they're probably not going to read the rest, and it doesn't really matter. If you do get the first bit right, then all of this extra content, the attachments, the additional text, everything becomes incredibly important. So let's have a look at Dan's first impression. We'll start at the top, the pictures. Dan has very kindly made his profile look as bad as possible. He doesn't normally keep it like this, just for everyone's reference. But the picture of the rugby ball, obviously Dan likes rugby, but that doesn't really help us. We want to know what Dan looks like. Not in order to judge his appearance, but because you can show your professional side. You can show things like where you work. For example, mine is in Central Park because I work in New York. I want people to know that. It's a story that you can tell about yourself by doing this. I'm also not wearing a suit, so they know that Job Search is a smart, casual work environment. If somebody's looking to work at Job Search, they see my profile, they see I'm not wearing a suit, it tells them something about the culture. So there are things you can say about your business and about yourself based on this picture alone. A rugby ball doesn't really tell us anything. So the first thing I would advise Dan to do is to change that to a picture of himself. You can either take it yourself, try not to do selfies really, because they tend to not look as professional, which right or wrong, I don't know, but they tend to not. So it's very easy to get a reasonable photo taken, find a blank background or find a city background or whatever you want it to be, but just try to do nothing mental in your picture. People will look at some pictures and think, what on earth are they doing? So always go conservative with the picture. Next is this picture here, which is the banner. Now, this that you'll see here, these constellation style patterns are LinkedIn standard. This is what happens when you don't do anything to the picture or if you remove a picture. Now, it's not that it looks bad, but it's basically what everyone who has made no effort on their profile has. Changing this shows that you are 1, tech savvy, and you're capable of changing something like this. 2, that you care about standing out. and 3, that you just have pride in what you're doing and you hold things to high standards and that you wouldn't just want the stock image. And so it does say a lot about you by just having something different. Now, I'm quite lucky in that Josh Search produced these amazing banners, and my goal of my LinkedIn isn't to get a job, it's to promote Josh Search and myself. And so it's very obvious what my choice of banner would be. If you were a job hunter and you didn't want to have your company banner up here, you can just have a plain banner that's something a bit different. It doesn't matter what it is. It can just be a plain block color if you wanted to. It just shows that it's different to everyone else. What I have found that's quite nice is that sometimes you get a picture here with contact information. So it could be their email address, maybe they write a blog, so it's the URL to the blog, could be an Instagram handle, could be anything, but it's extra information that you're able to get in this top banner, which as an initial snapshot of your profile is really cool because it's different and it's a call to action. Somebody could contact you literally just by clicking on your page and not even having to scroll. They've got your information there, which is wonderful. So first thing to do is change this and make sure that this is a nice professional picture showing what you want them to see. Next up is your little tagline under here. Now, obviously Dan spelled consultant wrong. I think it's always been like that. I don't think he changed that. I don't think he knows how to spell consultant. I wind him up, he's on this call. So that is an obvious spelling mistake. Make sure this is spelt right. This is where they'll see your job title. And if somebody is looking for you for a potential role, that's the first thing they'll look for, is what is your actual job? The next thing they'll do is, does it match up to here? So Dan's a consultant, he's not an associate consultant. That shows he's either been careless and he's forgotten to change it, or there's some kind of mix up somewhere. Obviously make sure it's spelled correctly as well. Some people here don't just put the job title. You know, Dan has got associate consultant at Josh Search, so he's got the company in there as well, which is great, because when you land on here without scrolling, the more information you can give here, the better, because sometimes people will literally just do that, just look at this, not scroll, and then move on. So if they know what you do here, that's very useful. Other people extend that even further, and they'll put some kind of tagline around like the sales that they do. So it could be associate consultant at Josh Search - we champion the hidden heroes, or opening up in New York, or something along those lines that's going to give people extra information that they want. I tend to prefer something a little bit shorter, just making sure it's accurate, make sure it's spelled correctly, and make sure it gives the information that you need, which is job title and company. To me, that makes a lot of sense. So the next thing you would normally have here is the about us. So we'll look on mine rather than Dan's because he's not got anything. That's the next thing I would say to make sure that you write. Now, when it's not expanded, so when they first land on your page, they just see these first 2 lines. What I say with everything that you ever post on social media is the first 2 lines are the most important. Like, I always call it a hook. Whenever I'm writing a post, you want to get people's attention as quickly as possible and write something engaging. Now, for me, the hook for me, like in terms of what I'm trying to achieve, is that I want people to know what I do and what the value of that is. And who I am, because I'm probably going to try and engage with you about something to do with business, and I either want to work with you as a candidate or a client or something along those lines, or just network, but it's good for you to know who I am. So my about me is, I'm an associate director at Josh Search. I'm currently undertaking the life-changing task of setting up our first international office in New York. So it's my job title, it's what I'm doing. This is very big. Anyone who sees that who's in New York will see, oh my God, he's doing something big, he's moving to New York. Anyone in London will see that's quite a big thing as well. But it's also personal, it's life-changing. That's not something that you would find in most professional jargon. This is something that's very personal to me. Whenever you're writing anything about yourself, if it's the About Us section, or if it's these bits down here, or if it's a post or anything, make sure that it's in your tone of voice, make sure it's personal to you. Try to avoid any fluff, any just buzzwords that you hear all the time. Don't write that you're diligent and hardworking and you work well in a team as an individual. It's just nonsense. Nobody cares about any of those things. They don't tend to read it. Something that is personal to you, that only you would write and that you would say out loud to your friends, that's the kind of thing you should write on there. Obviously keep it professional. Don't use too much slang or swear words or anything like that, but it still has to feel real. So I wrote that because it basically summarized who I am and what I'm doing. And then the next I took as an opportunity to, again, work towards my goal, which is to expand my network to people who might want to work with us, and also to sell my services as a recruiter in Josh Search. So I wrote something about Josh Search, which is very important because my LinkedIn is to promote the business. And then the final thing, which I think is important to any recruiter or to any person looking to sell their services on LinkedIn, but potentially also actually to job hunters, is have a call to action and have a way of contacting in this. So if you're an EA, admin assistant, or someone's looking for a job in this area, I'd love to have a chat with you. Feel free to reach out to me via email at adam@jobsearch.com. So I'm asking people to connect with me and to email me and to do something based off the back of reading this. So call to action is very useful to have in there. Also got the company website in there. So the more information you can put in that's useful and the more clear you can be on what you want people to do by coming onto your page, the better. The last thing you'll see is these attachments at the bottom. I very rarely see these on people's pages, which is ridiculous because it's a great way of getting so much more information into your LinkedIn profile. Here we have a brochure for Job Search, it's like a 20-page brochure, really nicely designed. We have a salary survey that we did in the UK, so we spoke to all of our candidates and found out what salaries they were earning, how many years of experience they've got, so it helps them with benchmarking. It also helps clients to benchmark. And we have recently put this one on, which is a guide to doing video interviewing, which at the moment, with everyone working from home and potentially interviewing from home, is really useful content. I couldn't write everything that's in these brochures on my page. It just wouldn't go anywhere and it would be far too much content. But I can attach these and you can click on them and download them anytime. So it's a great way of getting additional content on there. If you're looking to market yourself, potentially just expand your network and connect with people, if you have a blog post, connect it in here. If you have your own website, get a one-page PDF and attach it there. If you are job hunting, you can take the contact details off your resume, put your resume on there if you want to, and have your call to action as download my resume below and email me on XYZ. And it's a great way of getting all that extra information into your profile. So I would highly recommend doing that. The About Me section is really, really important. If you think people don't read it, they do. If you get their attention initially with a really nice looking profile, they probably will read this as well. It's a great chance for you to show your personality. Okay, the next thing for Dan is, we'll come on to activity at the end. Let's go down to experience. Now, as a recruiter, the things I look for in experience are things making sense and progression within a career. Like Dan's actually is very good. I personally wouldn't have this on here, so customer service representative at Waitrose and Partners, part-time through university. It's fine, but I think it detracts from what he's doing. This is very nice. So you can see clear timelines for how quickly he got promoted. He's gone from associate consultant, which is the entry level at Job Search, to consultant in New York. So he's been promoted and then he's been moved to a new market, which is obviously very exciting. So I like this. A lot of people have very higgledy-piggledy job titles. They don't seem to make much sense. You've got them going through different roles, different companies, and you can't really follow their decision making. So if I were to look for a candidate, I'd want to see clearly how they made their decisions in life. Were they promoted within a business? Did they move on to a more reputable company? And try and figure it out. So if somebody had gone from like a relatively unknown company to working for like a tech startup to working for Google, you might think, okay, they're progressing within the world of tech to like higher and higher profile businesses. If they didn't have that, and if it didn't make sense, I would have to then dig deeper for that information, where you could write it next to it if you wanted to, justifications for what you've done, or I just have to call them and speak to them. But having it make sense is great. If you look at my profile, it's actually probably not as good as Dan's. Like this bit is great. So if you look at my previous role, gone from associate consultant to consultant, senior consultant, client services lead, and then director. So you can see between 2015 and 2019, I had 4 promotions and moved up to a director level to a new business, which is great. And just by looking at the profile, you'd think, well, this guy's done quite well in a short space of time. It doesn't really matter what the reasons were or what happened or the surroundings. On the surface, it looks quite good. If you look at the bottom of my profile, I had an account manager for a company that doesn't even have a logo, then a personal trainer, and then like head of a leisure department for an entertainment company. So that doesn't really make any sense as to what I'm doing now. If somebody was approaching me about a job as a recruitment consultant, they'd probably ignore this entirely. I could realistically get rid of this, but then because I don't have education on there, they'd see June 2015 as my first job and probably think I was substantially younger than I am. Considering I've been working since 2009 in like proper roles. So I keep it on there just for like timeline's sake, but that's really irrelevant. Now, the other thing that you'll notice is there's text for these ones and not here. There's differing views on what's best to do. I personally think because I'm trying to market my company, I just want information about Josh Search. I don't necessarily want information about my previous companies because it detracts from what was going on. You can see my progression, you can see the job titles, but realistically, I want to tell people about Josh Search. So I've written lots of stuff about them there and then reattached the video interview tips and the brochure, and there's another call to action. Now, if you're a candidate looking for potential new jobs or you're connecting with businesses, I would do this differently. What I would do is with each job and potentially with each job title, rather than writing about the business, so if you're like, let's say, an executive assistant, you worked at Goldman Sachs and BlackRock and JP Morgan, whatever, you don't need to write about JP Morgan. The people who are looking to hire you know who JP Morgan are. They know what they do. They don't need some information on that. What you can do is next to each job title, write your key achievements within that role, or write about your responsibilities within that role, or write about some kind of information that these people would want to see, and that gives extra stuff about you that they wouldn't be able to tell from the rest of the profile, or that they wouldn't be able to tell just by looking elsewhere. It's a great chance to get that information in there. So don't waste it by telling them about companies that they can just Google. It has to be something unique to your profile. Make sure that you have these logos on every company. Sometimes if you put the company in slightly wrong, it won't come up with their logo. Companies have their own pages on LinkedIn, but it has to be exact. So like I saw one earlier, there was Merrill Lynch and it has the logo, but Merrill Lynch Inc. doesn't have that logo because it's a completely separate company set up on LinkedIn for some reason. So make sure that you've got the logos there. Some businesses don't have them. It's a very small company up in Hull, so they don't have one. But just where possible, make sure you have them so it looks a hell of a lot better. Okay, the way to change all these things is super straightforward. You just press this crayon icon here and you can put all this information in. If you press it, you'll see you've got company, you can put employment type if you want, job title, make sure you get the dates in there because all the dates have to line up, and the media, you click upload and you can put those brochures in there. Okay, so super duper straightforward. And that's the profile. The last thing you've got is education at the bottom. So just put in whatever you want. I didn't actually go to university, so I don't have anything in there. No point putting my GCSEs because nobody cares. Whereas Dan went to Nottingham Trent, did sport and exercise science, 2-1, he's got the dates in there as well. So what we can look at is, look at the dates. As soon as he finished uni, he got into Josh Search. So he's just gone straight into work as soon as he graduated and worked his way up within a business, which again, reflects very positively on Dan. So that's the profile. We can go from this to hopefully something a little bit more like this, which is just stand out. Mine is by no means the best profile on LinkedIn. There's substantially better ones than mine, but I've done everything that I possibly can with all the different sections and made it as nice as possible. So just work on those few things: banner, picture, tagline, about us, and then sort these bits out and make sure that they say something about you and all are aligned with the right job titles, the right dates, company logos, and so on. So the final thing we can look at, and it's something that some recruiters look at and some employers look at, is your activity. Now, this is where LinkedIn completely changes to become something more than just having a profile and having people read it and potentially reach out to you. Is where you can take charge of what you do on LinkedIn. Now, with activity, you can see everything that somebody's done. So if Dan is going around liking controversial political posts or things that might be potentially a hindrance to him getting a job in the future, if it's very polarized one way or the other, you can see it in here. So sometimes we do check if somebody is very controversial with what they're liking, it probably reflects on their views. And so Dan is liking quite normal stuff. He's very positive to lots of people. He likes a lot of things, which is great because it shows he's on LinkedIn. He's very positive. He's helping each other out. He liked my post, so thank you very much, Dan. And that's good. What he doesn't tend to do is comment much on other people's stuff, which is something that he could do better. Because if you're not ready to post on LinkedIn, because posting on LinkedIn can be a little bit daunting, the first thing that you can do to become a positive influence on LinkedIn and to raise your personal brand and to just be a good person is comment on people's posts. A lot of the time people post wanting to start a dialogue. They don't just want people to like it because that's not really the strongest engagement. If you see something that you like, take the time to write, "Great post, thank you very much." It's literally that easy. It takes 3 seconds, 2 seconds longer than just liking it. But that engagement is going to mean a lot to the person that posted it. It's going to get more traction for their post. And you can also write something that potentially, sorry, dog's barking, potentially starts a conversation, which is great, because then their post is going to get a lot more traction. Shush. Sorry. So take the time to write on people's posts. Try and comment as much as you can rather than just liking it. If you disagree with what they say, don't be afraid to start that conversation and put your opinion across. If you do agree with what they say, let them know, because they've obviously spent time writing this post and want to know what people feel about it. The next thing is posts. Dan is very good at writing posts. He's going to love this. Look at all those likes. Well done, Dan. So if you are going to do a post, it can be daunting. I understand that. Personal brand, getting your name out there, putting yourself out for people to potentially criticize what you're doing and what you're saying is scary, especially the first few times that you do it. If you are the type of person who wants to start marketing yourself more, posting on LinkedIn, in my opinion, is so, so powerful. But where do you start? Right? There's 1,000,001 things you could say, but you're obviously worried to post them, because why would you not be? We live in a society where you are judged entirely on how many likes you get for everything that you say and do. I'm massively a victim of this. I will take 1,000,000 different pictures until I get one that I think people will like, and then I post on social media. And that's just not real. It's nonsense. But it's the same with LinkedIn. There's a lot of times I consider saying something and writing a post, and then I won't do it because I'm worried that enough people won't like it. Excuse me. But that's silly. I think that if you have something to say, if you have an opinion, whether that's on a current event or whether it's on something to do with your work, or whether it's on something that somebody said or whatever, you are entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to share it, and it shouldn't matter what other people think about it. What I would say is, just to start off, don't be too controversial. Try and say things that you believe, that you're passionate about, and that can be positive. Always start off with positivity, and it's never going to go down badly. In regards to posting, Dan is very, very good. So if you pick a topic that you want to write about, the most important thing, as with before, is this first line. People are scrolling very quickly on LinkedIn. You go down, 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 like this on the newsfeed, and they rarely stop, unless the first line is something that they're genuinely really interested in. Now, Dan wrote secretary to assistant to executive assistant to business partner to what? This is a huge talking point in the world of executive assistants. The role title, in my opinion and Dan's opinion and lots of people's opinion, is that executive assistant doesn't really encompass everything that they're doing anymore. They're far closer to a business partner. And then where's that going to go in the future? And so this first line was obviously going to get a lot of engagement. So if you are going to write a post, think about what's the point you want to make. Dan is talking about how does the role differ from where it used to be back when it was a secretary role, and do they deserve a different job title? So that's a very engaging point to make. But the first thing has to be, how do you get people's attention? So, excuse me, sorry. It is coronavirus time. I don't think I have it. So that would be some advice around the postings. My one and only bit of advice for this video is, if you are going to post something out there, just think about that first line and how you want to make it important. And the other thing is, just start posting. Don't be afraid to. It's scary the first few times. You might not know what to post. Post anything. Post something that you think of. As long as it's positive, it will go out there, and nothing bad will happen. And then you get more used to it. You become more confident, and you post more and more things in the future. And before you know it, you're posting regularly, and you start to have a very strong employer brand that people are engaging with really well. So to go back to the profile and why this is important, if I'm looking for a really strong candidate, I will look at what they've posted. If they've never posted anything, I don't necessarily think badly of them. You know, I just think maybe they're like 95% of the people on LinkedIn who just simply don't want to post anything. But if they have posted things, I always look at what they posted. Get a good idea for who they are and what they believe, and you can make summaries about their type of personality based on these. It's also a good chance to see their writing abilities. If you post things, people can see how good you are at, you know, putting your points across. Are you somebody that is clear and concise and makes good points and is a strong thinker? You know, it's all a good opportunity for you to present yourself in the best way for getting a job. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the profile. If anyone has any questions about how to improve their LinkedIn profile, if you want me to do a review or an audit of their profile and give them some tips, or if you want some help on initial posts, or basically just anything to do with LinkedIn, then you can drop me an email, adam@jostsearch.com. Feel free to message me anytime, and I will happily help anyone who needs help with these kind of profile problems. All right, thank you.